How's everyone doing this morning? Did we survive yesterday's happy hour? Yes, of course. I would like to invite everyone to please take their seats as we kick off the second day of CANTO Connect and the 41st AGM here at the Renaissance Resort. And of course, also welcome and thank you for being on time this morning because we have another exciting agenda. But before we start with today's agenda, I would like to, of course, give thanks to those that made this edition of the Connect and AGM possible, starting with our platinum sponsors, Bankai, OneCom, and Brava. Our gold sponsor, Cable and Wireless Communications. Silver sponsors, Calyx and ALIV. Yesterday's photo sponsors was Inet. So for those that wore their orange photos, thank you. Our bags were sponsored by Telester and Cerillion, and our lanyards by 6D. So let's give an applause for our sponsors and those that provided for being here today. And of course, yes, also the coffee kickstart is thanks to Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you for the drinks and bites. And yes, we mentioned it already. But if you haven't downloaded the CANTO app, please do so. So it's CANTO Caribbean, found on Android and iOS to the mixed users. And if you need the Wi-Fi, can you get the Wi-Fi on the screen? That's not even data, it's empty. So the Wi-Fi is, you go to Marriott_conference, and the password is CURBR2024. So Marriott_conference, CURBR2024. All lowercase. It's not case. Okay. All caps, lowercase, combination. All good. So we kick off this morning with our first speaker, and I'm going to leave you in the hands of the chair of CANTO C9 Committee, Mrs. Lisa Agard, who is going to give us an update on the Gigabit Society. So please with you, Lisa Agard, chair of CANTO C9 Committee, with an update on the Gigabit Society. So an applause for Lisa. Good morning.
Let me make sure that I can see everything.
Yep.
And which glasses I could use. Bon dia. So, I forgot. Again, bon dia. So, what is the Caribbean Gigabit Society by 2030? Damien mentioned it yesterday in his speech. So basically, it is a vision and a plan to transform the Caribbean into a sustainable, digitally integrated, and globally competitive region. And I have heard that theme echo in many presentations yesterday and the day before. And of course, it is completely aligned to the theme of this conference, which is towards a unified and sustainable gigabit society. So these are the members of CANTO C9, and yes, all Caribbean telecoms operators can collaborate while being fierce competitors. But to contextualize our discussion today, we need to understand the issues affecting us and the impediments that we face towards developing this Caribbean gigabit society. And our biggest issue is the unconnected in the region. Globally, according to the UN Broadband Commission, there are 2.6 billion people, or 30% of the global population, that are unconnected. In the Caribbean, the GSMA did a study and determined that 15 million, or almost half of the population in the Caribbean, remain unconnected to mobile. And then on the fixed side, we have 1.6 million Caribbean households unconnected, excluding Haiti. Now, of the 1.6 million connections that we have, 935,000, or 26%, already have fiber connections, principally in Barbados, Trinidad, and Jamaica, obviously in other territories as well. But 20% of the current 1.6 connections are non-fiber connections. And worryingly, 15% of households have access but are not connected. When we add Haiti to the equation, we are talking about approximately 4.6 million households that are not connected to the internet by fiber or otherwise in the Caribbean. Those are huge problems. And we've also reached a huge tipping point in terms of our data usage. So Caribbean networks and operators have invested approximately, and that's a conservative figure, about $500 million per annum, or 0.5% of regional GDP, in network upgrades and improvements since 2017. And I say that that's a conservative number. And we have considerable progress in terms of mobile internet connections. That number has grown from 9 million in 2015 to 17 million in 2023. But this is the worrying part of the development as it relates to data usage. Mobile data traffic has grown from 2.2 gigs to 3 gigs. That is per month per mobile user in the Caribbean. And the GSMA predicts that that will grow to 15 gigabits, or grow by 26% by 2030 per mobile device per month, which will require network capacity to be multiplied 5 times. Let me repeat that. By 2030, operators in the region will have to multiply their capacity 5 times to meet the growing and insatiable demand for data. And we've seen, as the GSMA says, an increase of 500% over the past 4 years. Notably, according to the GSMA in their study, 4 big tech companies generate 70% of the mobile data traffic in the region. 70%. Why does all of this matter? Because there is a direct correlation between digital development and overall economic development. And that is why we look at studies done by the ITU in particular, the ICT Development Index, or the IDI, which was last published in 2023, which measures digital development along 2 vectors: meaningful connectivity and universal connectivity. And that is done for 169 countries around the world. But look at where the Caribbean scores. On average, we score between 15 to 20 points behind Europe and the USA. So this means that given the reflection of the scores, which mirror our digital maturity, we have some considerable way to go. And there is a direct econometric connection between IDI scores and national development. And I must say congratulations to St. Kitts. Is Irvin here? Because they score the highest IDI score in the region at 82.3 out of 100. What are some of the broadband targets set by countries around the world? We have none. We have no broadband targets as a CARICOM region. So in EU, there is a gigabit coverage to all households by 2030. In the US, 1 gigabit speeds by 2020 to community institutions, 25% of the population to have gigabit internet, and 93% of the population must have 5G coverage. In the UK, gigabit broadband to 85% of the UK by 2025 and nationwide by 2030. And in the UK, those metrics cover both 5G and broadband to homes and businesses. We have to create a gigabit Caribbean society where no one is left behind. What does all of this mean? Because we need to quantify what the investment gap is that will take us from where we are now, given our penetration, our IDI scores, the number of people unconnected to both mobile and household broadband. What will it take to get us to a Caribbean gigabit society like other parts of the world, EU, UK, the US, and Japan? So the GSMA averaged or estimated that on the mobile side, there's an investment gap of $3.45 billion US. That deals with 4G coverage, a usage gap, and 5G. And on the fixed side, including Haiti, the investment gap is 5.8 billion US to 10.8 billion US dollars. So cumulatively, the investment gap in the entire Caribbean, if we are to get to where we are now, to some objective gigabit targets by 2030, the cumulative investment gap is between 9.25 billion and 14.25 billion US dollars. This is a serious, serious problem. And why does all of this matter? Because we know that digital development is foundational to the strategic digital transformation of our societies. We will miss our digital inclusion and transformation targets if we do not hit some of these metrics as it relates to 5G and fiber to the home or fiber to the curb. Our businesses will not be able to compete on a global scale. We will not be able to facilitate online learning by getting people access to more materials so we can produce the world's next entrepreneurs. We will not be able to develop smart communities. I saw several presentations yesterday talking about smart communities that would facilitate remote monitoring for advanced services like traffic, water, power, and policing. And most significantly, we will not be able to develop platforms and modalities that will accommodate efficient governments delivering online services. So there's no question that our digital development and why speed matters will have a transformative impact on our ability to digitally transform our economies. I leave this slide for you guys to ponder for a moment. Fact: Alphabet, Meta, Netflix, TikTok, Apple, and Amazon earned a combined $11.5 billion in the Caribbean in 2023 alone. Let me repeat that. $11.6 billion in 2023 alone. You remember my figures for what the investment gap is in the Caribbean? Pretty close to these numbers. And this is based on publicly available information about ARPUs from these companies. And yet, they generate 70% of the mobile data alone. And they make no contribution to the infrastructure that carries their traffic. So we have a huge task ahead of us in terms of addressing this very significant issue of broadband cost recovery. And there are several approaches. I will only address two of them today, which is the market-based approach adopted by South Korea and the regulated approach, which is being considered seriously in the United States. So South Korea. South Korea passed what is called the Service Stabilization Act, or the Netflix law, and basically it mandates content providers negotiate directly with broadband providers for cost recovery. The negotiations are commercially confidential between the parties, and the government's regulators' sole involvement is aggregating on an annual basis the entire data traffic in the industry. A commendable approach. The United States is really quite interesting. So you remember I talked about the IDI score and how it's a reflection of the digital maturity of a country across two vectors, meaningful and universal connectivity. Well, the United States in that IDI ITU survey scored a whopping 96.6 points out of 100, telling you and telling the global community that they are a rather digitally mature nation. No surprise. Notwithstanding that, the United States, under the last administration, passed the Infrastructure Act and designated $65 billion to improve high-speed internet access for people all over the United States. And this is a combination of supporting through the BEAD program the development of infrastructure in rural communities to support schools, health centers, etc., but also to subsidize internet access for families who can't afford it. So even the mighty United States, with an IDI score of 96.6, found it necessary to allocate funding to bridge the digital divide in the United States. We don't know what's going to happen with the infrastructure fund under this new regime, but we will see. And then in 2023, very importantly, they introduced a bipartisan legislation, it has not been passed, called the Lowering Broadband Costs for Consumers Act 2023. bipartisan Senate support for this bill. And the purpose of it is really to reform the Universal Service Fund in the United States, which typically every year distributes about $10 billion to rural communities to support infrastructure broadband deployment. And the net effect of the legislation is that they are going to assess large edge providers like Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, who account for more than 3% of total annual internet traffic and who make more than $5 billion in annual revenue. The plan is they will be assessed, and the contributions from that assessment will be placed into the Universal Service Fund to be deployed to build networks in rural communities and to support their program of Internet for All. And very interestingly, the new chairman of the FCC has, in many international forums, endorsed this approach. So we wait to see what's going to happen in the United States as far as that is concerned. So where are we exactly in CARICOM, and what are our next steps? So in March 2023, CARICOM developed terms of reference to establish a working group to review models to achieve a CARICOM gigabit society by 2030. That working group has produced a 90-page report, which will be submitted to the upcoming CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in February. And basically, it's structured in 3 parts. It will define the Caribbean Gigabit Society, basically setting a pathway for all people of the Caribbean to have access to 5G mobile broadband networks and fiber to the home network connections of at least 100 megs download speed, upgradable to gigabit speed. And targets will be a little more work needs to be done on agreeing exactly what those targets will be, but we will define the Gigabit Caribbean Society. Very significantly, the second part of the paper addresses the issue of securing broadband infrastructure investment. And coming out of that meeting, we hope and expect that there will be an endorsement of a very fundamental principle that systemic traffic generators who derive commercial benefit from the digital economy must contribute fairly and equitably to the broadband infrastructure investment required to carry their traffic. And then thirdly, we are looking at a harmonized legal and regulatory framework to establish a unified legal and regulatory foundation to create the single ICT space. Now, it was very interesting when we started to do the research on the harmonized legal and regulatory environment, because back in 2017, CARICOM heads endorsed the single ICT space, which was envisaged to enable borderless, or the creation of a borderless ICT space that fosters economic, social, and cultural integration. And its focus was to evolve diverse national regulatory frameworks into regionally harmonized elements of a common ICT Caribbean environment. Over the years, there have been quite a few projects, and I must commend the ITU for the HIPCAR project of some years ago, which sought to introduce model legislation to treat with issues like data privacy and protection, cybersecurity, digital transactions, etc., a whole slew of legislation. and also more recently, the EGRIP program and the CARDP program funded by the World Bank in the Eastern Caribbean. Again, the Eastern Caribbean has to be commended for the enormous work that they have done to look at digital enabling environments, digital financial services, cybersecurity, etc. When we did a survey, well, UN ECLAC did a survey of a number of territories in the Caribbean who had adopted legislation recommended through HIPCA. Unfortunately, the results are not encouraging. So we've developed this heterogeneous quilt of legislation in various territories. In some cases, they've not been passed at all. In some instances, like Trinidad and Tobago, there's been partial proclamation of legislation, and in others, there have been full implementation. And we need to not only ensure that the foundational regulatory environment to support the digital economy in areas like cybersecurity, data protection and privacy, digital transactions, all of those are put in place. And in addition, we need to ensure that legislation that treats with a fintech economy, artificial intelligence, distributed ledger technologies, and market access to digital authentication services are also addressed. Again, efforts in those latter areas have been piecemeal across the Caribbean, but we need to have a unified and harmonized regulatory foundation if we are to achieve the benefits of a digital economy. So with that, I cannot believe that I am actually on time. I have 1 minute and 16 seconds. I invite you all to collaborate with us, to cooperate with us, and to join us in this transformational journey as we take the Caribbean to a sustainable gigabit society. Dushi. Have a Dushi Day. Is that the correct pronunciation?
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Lisa, on sharing with us the great work that the C9 Committee of CANTO is doing in the quest towards a unified and sustainable gigabit society. Some of the points that were mentioned, of course, is that still in the Caribbean, we have almost 1/3 of the population, not in the global scale, we have 1/3 of the population still unconnected. That the growth of mobile usage will mean that providers will have to grow 5 times in the coming years. And also the impact of digital and being connected will have to impact education, the possibility for businesses to compete on a global scale. I know that most of us always look at export as part of the growing strategy for organizations, and digital access and inclusion is still very much important to that. Moving on to our next speaker of this morning, who is going to give us a little bit more information on building a resilient digital economy, the role of local data hosting in the Caribbean. So none other than the Chief Operating Officer of BlueNap Americas to help us understand this topic a little bit better. So with you, I leave you in the hands of Danilo Zavala, the Chief Operating Officer of BlueNap Americas. Danilo. And also thank you for providing the tour yesterday.
Good morning, buen día. Yes, good morning again. Bon dia. Today I'll be talking about building a resilient digital economy, the role of local data hosting in the Caribbean. But before I delve into the presentation, let's take a look at some numbers and some trends to figure out where the industry is going. So if you look around the world, I mean, there's no escape. Everybody is entertaining some form of digital adaptation. Digital transformation has become an imperative for business in the digital era, and there's no escape. If you look at education, if you look at healthcare, if you look at finance, if you look at any industry, they're undergoing huge transformation to go into the digital age. Some of the quotes on the slides, like the CEO of Microsoft just recently said, they've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months' time. So there's a huge acceleration for adopting digital technology. And this has been accelerated due to the COVID pandemic and also the arrival of AI. So companies are scrambling to get on this digital transformation bandwagon. And this trend is it's driven by the younger generation, so the new millennials. If you think about it, your customers are going to be the younger generations of today. So in my case, I have young kids. I can't imagine my kids going to stand in line at the bank to open a bank account. That's just not going to happen anymore, right? They'll be looking on their digital device, click a couple of buttons, and they're up and running. So this trend is unavoidable, and we need to see how to deal with it. A lot of countries and organizations have recognized this trend and have jumped on the bandwagon. In fact, the government of Curaçao is taking it very seriously. In fact, they have included it in the national export strategy that they have come up with, which is a long-term strategy to guide Curaçao in the next decade. In this strategy, they have identified the IT sector as a very important sector for Curaçao. In fact, they consider it to have the potential to become the fourth economic pillar for Curaçao. Curaçao, such as other islands in the Caribbean, have been heavily depending on oil and gas, financial sector, and tourism. But they have recognized that there needs to be a change to accommodate this trend in the future, and they have chosen IT to be the driving force of that. So in Curaçao, they have done several investments and spent several resources to help promote the IT sector. In fact, one of the first successes of this initiative has been the launch of the Digital Hub Americas. That's the association of all things tech here in Curaçao, which comprises of software developers, I see some in the room today, data centers, telco operators, academia, regulatory agencies, even the government itself. So it's a true PPP association really driving the development of digital technology. In fact, CANTO is probably very familiar with this initiative because we launched it a couple of years ago in Miami with great success. From the DHA, we have already booked several big wins and successes. I can confirm, for example, our data center has partnered up with a local developer which develops software for tax agencies, which we have deployed all over the Caribbean. So there are several governments of the Caribbean that are hosting their tax software here in Curaçao in our data center. A fantastic accomplishment. So I think it's pretty clear the opportunity. I think it's pretty clear some of the strategies that we see being put out there, but how do you deploy all this technology? Well, basically, people have three choices. Traditionally, in the past, people considered deploying all this technology on-prem. On-premise has some advantages because it's yours, you're in full control, but certainly it has some challenges with it because you'd have to acquire an IT, in-house IT staff. It's less scalable. You have to deal with the burden of the rapid technology change, so equipment refresh, keeping up with the developments of the world. So very quickly, this option becomes a burden on companies. On the other extreme, we have the option now to deploy this technology in the cloud. Well, in the cloud has some fantastic advantages. It's elasticity, it's pricing, flexible models, but also it has some challenges because cloud operators in the Caribbean, typically very far away, typically in the US, so you have to deal with some technical challenges, and there's also some compliance challenges as well. So usually customers pick something right in the middle. for example, a local data center. But in considering a local or regional data center, what are the important factors that you have to take into consideration? In my opinion, there's three areas that you have to think about. First, there is what I call a technical consideration. If you're deploying your applications or software solutions in a cloud data center, most likely this cloud data center will be far away from the Caribbean. So it's probably in the US or in Europe or somewhere. This distance away from your operations will play a technical challenge for you. Because of the distance, it will introduce unnecessary latency, which as a result can affect the quality of the performance of that digital application. There's other technical issues as well. If you decide to go with a local data center or a regional data center, there's also an added advantage, for example, of their commitment to help you much faster. For example, if you were to take cybersecurity services from a cloud operator far away, if there's a cyber attack, most likely the cyber attack is on your premises and not at the data center site, which is miles away, so they're not as inclined to help you immediately. If you were to take it from a local data center, chances are that attack is happening at the local data center as well, so they'll be much more inclined to assist you much rapidly. And I'm not even talking about cost consideration, but obviously the connection on a local data center is probably much more cost effective than one that's far away. That's reason number one. Reason number two, I call it the data sovereignty question. So if you're hosting your data in a faraway data center in the cloud, do you know where your data is? What types of data are you hosting and processing? Is it citizen information? What about data privacy? What about those islands that have to adhere to European-based privacy laws such as GDPR? What types of compliance issues do you have to tackle? So those are important considerations as well. The third item, I think, is one that a lot of people overlook, is if you were to host in an international cloud data center, you are enriching that country's economy, right? So why not spend your hard-earned money here in the Caribbean? That way you would be increasing your local economy, and hopefully we'll come to a point where we can grow our economies together and then compete with the larger economies. So now, if you are convinced that you want to host your digital technology here locally in the region, there are several fantastic data centers to consider. And of course, Curaçao, as you might know, has a fantastic data center. Some of you had the privilege to come see it yesterday, but the Blue Nap Americas data center, of course, one of the good options here in the Caribbean. A couple of benefits for hosting with us is, of course, our Tier 4 certification, the only Tier 4 data center in the region, ISO 27000 certification, 10 years of hosting international customers with zero downtime. So if you have any mission-critical applications and you're concerned about uptime and security, we are probably a good choice. But even though we have fantastic data centers in the Caribbean, we all have to tackle one final problem. You see, in order to enjoy the benefits that a data center or a regional data center can offer, you need to be able to connect to it. And that is the final challenge that we have to overcome here in the Caribbean. You see, in the Caribbean, there are several submarine cables, several telecom companies, but unfortunately, the communications between islands is not always as direct as you would imagine. And one of the technical reasons is, if you look at the slide, most cables, they have some aggregation points in the region. And in the Caribbean, the biggest aggregation point is southern Florida, typically Miami. There's also some aggregation happening in Puerto Rico, for example. But as a result of that technical architecture, what you find is that inter-island communication typically takes a long route, because sometimes the traffic has to go all the way to those aggregation points and back. And that introduces, again, unnecessary delays and latency, which will make the quality of service perceived by the end customer not as good. So today, basically, you have two ways of inter-island communication, okay? And I'm going to propose a third one. The first one is the easiest one, most economical, is to just make a connection through the internet. Every country has internet, every business has access to internet. So you would think it's just a matter of coming up with a internet connection, perhaps putting a secure tunnel, commonly known as a VPN, over this internet connection, and you're done. This is by far the easiest and cheapest way to make it happen. But as I already explained, the routing of that internet signal not always goes through the shortest path. Most likely than not, it will go through a very long path. It will go through several connection nodes, which will add additional delays and will cause technical quality issues moving forward. And that's even without mentioning the fact that if you're using an internet communication, you are much more susceptible and vulnerable to cyber attacks, because just like you can have very easy access to internet, the criminals also have very easy access to the same internet. So probably not a secure option. The second option, which is the best option, of course, is to have a direct connection between islands. And this is possible. If you go to a telco operator, you can request for them to build for you a private circuit from one island to another. If you're lucky to find one of the large operators, they can probably provide that service end to end, but chances are they'll have to provide that service through multiple operators, which will add additional costs and complexity. But the direct connection is possible. Direct connection will give you the best quality, no doubt about it. It will have the shortest path. Typically, you're the only customer traversing that circuit, so you have the privacy, you're less vulnerable for cyber attacks, etc. But on the other hand, as you can probably imagine, this is a huge cost. And the cost is so huge that probably only very large corporations or government are able to afford a private direct connect circuit. So is there another option? Well, we are proposing a third option, which is somewhere in the middle. And we're doing that through the launch of last year's Caribbean Data Center Association. What is the Caribbean Data Center Association? Well, we have as a mission, as a vision to build a cutting-edge infrastructure connecting data centers across the Caribbean to facilitate the proliferation of digital economy in the region. Our mission is simple: create a consolidated Caribbean market and digital economy. How are we going to accomplish that? Well, the way we're going to do that is we're going to choose a couple of strategically located data centers in the Caribbean, and we were going to tie those data centers together with large communication trunks. Each one of those data centers will in turn have local internet exchanges where other local providers are connected to. So if you are a company located on a country which has one of the CDA data centers, all you have to do is make sure you have a connection to that local data center. And as soon as you get connection there, you can jump on the CDA highway, which will interconnect you with all the rest of the CDA member countries. Today, as you can see on the screen, we already have the founding members of this association was ourselves and DataSur Suriname. But we have other data centers that have joined the association, with last week's announcement of Kio Networks in Panama and the Dominican Republic. We are about to announce a major data center in Trinidad, which is joining very shortly. And we are working this year to get a data center in Martinique, St. Martin, and US Virgin Islands. Once we have all those on board, we will start to create this interconnected network. And very soon, you guys will get some major announcement from our side, which will certainly help push the inter-island communication and therefore the inter-island economic development. So that was my presentation. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Danilo. And also congrats on the Data Center Association. I think that's definitely one of the many steps that will help us get to the unified society that we talk about. Having data centers connected and also, highlighting the fact that data and the consumption of data will become even more important as we move forward in this digital economy. Some of the benefits you've mentioned of hosting locally or regionally, cost-effective, better service, data privacy and compliance becomes a topic. And most importantly, in the Caribbean, unification through helping each other's economy is what we should do best. Next, I would like to welcome here Senior Director of Public Policy and External Relations of SOMOS, Mr. Kevin Green with a presentation titled Do Not Originate. So with you and good hands up, Mr. Kevin Green.
Bon dia, good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. I've been really enjoying my time here in Curaçao. Really such a beautiful country. Everybody is so hospitable. Certainly appreciate our time here. So this morning, well, first of all, my name is Kevin Green. As mentioned, Senior Director of Public Policy and External Relations for Somos. And I'm going to talk to you a bit this morning about international do not originate. But first, I want to talk to you a bit about Somos. Somos is a global provider of number management and information services for over 7 billion identities. We're probably best known as the North American Numbering Plan Administrator. Many of the Caribbean nations are members of the NAMP dialing plan, so you're probably somewhat familiar. We're also the toll-free administrator for the US government. And most recently, they asked us to develop a database called the Reassigned Numbers Database. Another part of our company, the commercial part, Global Number Intelligence Solutions, and DNO sits squarely in this part of the business. We focus on fraud mitigation. We have a full suite of authentication enablement and identity management solutions serving multiple industries. Our global consultancy services offering is more focused on primarily governments and enterprises, but really anybody who needs to know more about the numbering system, how that operates. We can help companies develop frameworks, guidelines. We can do numbering audits and many other activities in that space. We consider ourselves really the global expert on all things numbering. But I wanted to talk to you this morning a bit about communications fraud. And as I listened to all the presentations over the last few days, and folks are mentioning the gigabit society, digital transformation, well, along with that comes opportunities for fraud. As you develop higher speed internet, no doubt there are more vector points for bad actors to engage and do damage to individuals, to networks. So we'll talk just a bit about that. It truly is a global problem, though. And industry and regulators have to work together to come up with numerous solutions. There's no one silver bullet, as it's typically described. It's going to take a number of things to really get our arms around this program. But one way that we can really attack this issue is by implementing a comprehensive do not originate or DNO list. And it's proven to be an effective tool in the US. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our experience in the US and how that could be help be put into application in other parts of the world and here in the Caribbean. Just a few statistics. In 2023, US robocall and robotext loss estimates. Now, some folks may not be familiar. Robocalls and robotexts are machine-generated traffic that is designed to typically defraud someone. Sometimes it just appears to be just a nuisance. But you can see the numbers here in the US, over almost 60 billion robocalls, over 160 billion robotexts. And not only are they a nuisance, because I'm sure many of us get calls, we look at our phone, we don't recognize the number, and we're like, oh, that's going to voicemail, right? Or you may get a text message and someone may just say, hey, or they might say, your Amazon package has not been delivered. You see all sorts of attempts to defraud people. But it's more than just a nuisance. This has true financial ramifications, as you can see. In the US, there were over 56 million individuals who were victims of scam calls. That's a big number, even in the United States. You look at the financial impacts, Together, scam texts and calls over 50 billion US dollars. And so any economy, that's a real number. It has an impact. And so we just wanted to help you see how big this is. You see some of the other statistics. I don't really need to read them to you, but it just indicates how much of a problem this is in the US. Now, admittedly, the Caribbean is quite different. We understand that. And so the scope and scale of this issue is not the same. But talking to folks over the last few days, some countries are dealing with this at a higher degree than others. You know, some are saying we're not really seeing this. But whatever the case, we're pretty confident that it's coming your way sooner or later, especially as you continue to grow your networks. Well, in the US, this DNO list has been proven to be extremely effective. We look at that DNO, really to describe it, are numbers that should never place an outbound call or text message. They would include invalid, unallocated, unassigned, and customer set. And I'll get back to that to explain it a little bit more. With such a problem, though, that the US Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, has put rules in place starting back in 2017 to allow carriers to block calls that are on a DNO list. And so that really was a sea change for the US. We're in the business of, at that time, I was working for Verizon, and we're in the business of connecting calls. We're not in the business of blocking calls at all, but the problem had gotten so big that the government had to take action. And so now the US FCC requires that international gateway providers and all messaging providers, in fact, block calls based on what they call a reasonable DNO list. And I'll explain that a little more. And the US is taking it a step further. They're looking at requiring all carriers, all US carriers, regardless of size, to utilize a DNO list. Several of the larger carriers, they kind of see the writing on the wall, they understand what's coming, and so they're already implementing DNO ahead of the requirement. Now, the SOMOS DNO list is the most comprehensive in the industry, containing over 6 billion different numbers on that list. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. So I talked about those different categories. But here's the takeaway, really 70% of all US numbers will not carry fraudulent traffic when utilizing a comprehensive DNO list. And as you see the pie here, we'll break that down a little bit. You see invalid numbers, 2.2 billion. Well, let me back up by saying in the US, there are 10 billion possible number combinations. And so that invalid numbers is about 2.2 billion. 22%. Those are numbers that NPAs and NXX ranges will not, are invalid. They're just not utilized. So you'll never see a call starting with a 0 or a 1 coming into the network. If you see that call coming in the US, you can block it immediately. Never goes to the consumer. Unassigned numbers, 3.2 billion. Of that are MPAs that are either unassigned or not available. If we think about N11 numbers, 911, 411, 811, those numbers will never be originating at the beginning of a call. Unallocated numbers are numbers that, where the area codes have been assigned, but numbers, blocks, 10,000, 1,000 blocks have not been, are not been fully allocated. And then we see a smaller group of numbers, 4 million numbers, the assigned numbers. Those are numbers that are in service, but the organization or enterprise has indicated to SOMOS that these are numbers that will never originate a call. If you think about IoT devices or inbound call centers, those kinds of locations, if a call is coming into the network and those numbers are on the list, that call is blocked. And then we start to see this smaller group here, that 2,000 number, ITG, Industry Traceback Group, DNO list, that is the FCC's designated list of do not originate. And so it's almost, we saw that, that's a very small amount of numbers. Primarily focuses on government agencies like the IRS, Social Security. They have said, we will not call consumers on these numbers. If you see it, block that call. So that leaves only 3 billion numbers. Those are the numbers that are legitimate. If they're coming into the network, the carrier can let those pass through. And so you see how we really shrunk the universe of potential fraudulent calls. We went through a similar exercise in the United Kingdom, and we can see that number is even higher, 88%. 88% of all calls will not carry fraudulent traffic if they're utilizing a fully developed D&O list. Well, what are the results? Well, here's some results from our experience in the US. One gateway provider reported a 17% hit rate upon implementation. One US Tier 1 carrier reported a 3% hit rate. That seems small, but you have to understand that Tier 1 carriers carry tens of millions of calls every day. Now, here's a good one. One leading wireless provider reported a 90% reduction in reported robocalls from consumers. And a major soft switch vendor blocked almost 300 million robocalls in just 45 days. So that's 300 million calls that never got to the consumer. They were blocked early in the network. And the world is taking note. The ITU is considering taking up under study group 2, the study group that is responsible for numbering, the development of an international D&O list. We expect that to occur later this summer. So as you can see, this is continuing to grow, and we believe that there will be benefit here in the Caribbean if companies were to consider utilizing a D&O list. And that's certainly going to take collaboration between the regulators and the carriers to make that happen. In fact, in the US, if the regulators were not involved, we probably would not have seen this level of progress since they actually wrote it into the FCC regulations. So what we would expect and what we hope is that study group 2 will help to develop international standards for D&O lists and really work to encourage international collaboration. So I want to leave you with this. The use of a comprehensive D&O list can benefit everyone. Carriers reduce utilization of network resources. For fraudulent purposes, they avoid the potential liability of passing on harmful traffic. Regulators carry out their commission to protect consumers from being exploited, and it also reduces customer complaints. And ultimately, the consumer experience and outcomes are improved by the reduction in nuisance calls and increased protection from fraud. And at the end of the day, if we are truly keeping the main thing, isn't that why we are all here? Well, that will conclude my presentation. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before you go on to the next presentation, I would like to take a moment to remind you that if you still haven't posted your pictures of the fun time at yesterday at the happy hour, if you do so, remember to tag Caribbean and also use the hashtag CANTO Caribbean 2025. Alright, so that's how it's for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you haven't followed CANTO yet, please do that as well, because we have some time updates and also you share with your social platforms so you can stay connected even if you know this English about AGM and also CANTO. Up next, we have Mr. Benjamin Cotton, who is Managing Director and Principal Consultant at the Curaçao Center Limited. He's going to be elaborating a little bit further on boss is struggling to lead, and also leadership competencies for I4.0. So with you, I leave in the hands of Richard Solomon, Managing Director, Principal Consultant for the Development Consulting Center Limited.
Thank you so much. Very good morning, everyone. I don't know, maybe you guys were all much later than I was. I just saw a little bit tired. Good morning. I want to spend a few minutes with you this morning to talk a little bit about some of the biggest challenges I think we're having as it relates to leadership, and as it relates as well to creating this gigabit society. Yesterday, our friend from St. Kitts mentioned having technology sitting on the ground, ready to meet, but for some reason it's not moving. It's not that it's tech, and the machines are not moving. It is that people are moving. And so actually one of the great challenges that we face here in the Caribbean is getting people to move faster, more efficiently, and to be more comfortable as we try to create this gigabit society. A little bit about our organization. We've been in the business of when my ideas to the countries in companies in 45 countries, and quite a few telecoms you'll find on the left-hand side some of the companies we've worked for, including some in on the African continent. Three things I want to touch today, just to look at the context of what we're dealing with, this business of bosses and leaders, and how it relates to leading in this time, Industry 4.0. So a few quick points here as it relates to the context that we're operating in. We don't need to belabor this. We know we are in Industry 4.0. We know that most organizations are enhancing and increasing complexity, trying to roll out new technologies, whether it's machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all of these. And why that is important, is critical. One of our challenges is some of the Caribbean, we are not yet where we need to be. Statistics says that a child born, statistics from the World Bank says that a child born in the Caribbean has a 55% opportunity of reaching their full productive potential. So the important statistic, Lisa, so your reaction. Because it tells us that we are not spending enough time and money as it relates to developing our people. And as I say that, I'm just remembering, we are working on an HR digital CANTO. We really need to see the HR people in this room as well. So for all those, from your organizations in the Caribbean, we need to bring in the people here. Because we've got this for some time, indicating that to gain full productive potential coming out of all these new technologies, not only must we accelerate, but we've got to improve the human capital. And so we know that the fourth industrial revolution is people power. Because I think more concerned about losing jobs, and so there'll be more jobs, that's going to be different jobs, but there'll be definitely more jobs. We do know as well that we can expect an uptick in the people piece, in terms of social and emotional connections as we roll out these new technologies. And that might sound a little bit oxymoronic, but it isn't. Because what will happen is many of the manual jobs will be mopped up, and what you'll find is by machines, and what you'll find is that more people interaction is more real. So this is the for some leaders. There's an African proverb that says, a lot of change does not make a king. Because you give us someone a position in the office, a short fridge, a plant, and a parking spot that does not make them. Actually, what we found is that many of the competencies that are necessary to lead people, most people end up in leadership roles, in telecoms, in electric utilities, in finance organizations, they don't have them. Let me ask you a show of hands. Which of these are your greatest challenge or challenge in your organization? This is your greatest challenge. This is the processes. And I think the biggest challenge in your organization, processes. I have 1 hand, 2 hands, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's go again. It's the technology. All the people say, this is my biggest challenge in my organization. Tech. It's the problem. It's the hands. I do not see a single hand. Not even a hand. All right. Is it people? How many of you say this is my biggest challenge? I have by a long margin of biggest challenge is the people side of the business. I don't say the problem is it's a people. And part of that is because of how we are wired. We're simply not wired to the level of change and innovation that we are trying to push people. The Homo sapiens sapiens is not wired for that. Because the Homo sapien is like I asked, what's the number one function of the human brain? Anyone? So? Survival. That's it. The number one function of the human brain is to keep you alive. Think about it. The brain is to keep you alive. So, about 90%, maybe about 95% of the electrical energy of the brain is used just to keep you alive, responding to the environment around you. And so, safety seeking is what the human is focused on most. The middle of the brain focuses on emotions, and the top of the brain focuses on the neocortex substance. Okay. The neocortex is the new brain, which is a small percentage of our electrical energy in our brain. About 3 to 5% of decisions are made there. Why is that important? Well, we're trying to say to people, run faster, keep changing, innovate. And people are saying, but what does this mean for me? Does that mean death? Will I lose my job? Will I no longer be relevant? You have people in your organization, quite possibly, who are holding on to old ways of being, and they refuse to let go. And if they're unionized, you can't make them let go. But you know what I'm talking. So innovation requires engagement. It requires emotional connection. We're asking people to demonstrate new ways of being in the midst of uncertainty and change, and that's very difficult. We need a special type of leadership to make that work and to make that happen. Here's a further problem. If you've done an a behavioral style or personality assessment, you will know that many of our leaders do not naturally possess the leaning, the behavioral style leaning that disposes them to leading people. When I see what I mean, leadership is influence. So if you're a leader, you go out front. If no one is following you, you're not a leader. You're going for a walk. So lots of people do not possess their training, their skill, their ability does not naturally dispose them to leading people. Let me show you this. This is a team of about 94 people that we did research. And can you see what's going on here? Now you notice that 33% of them fall into that C category. Another 28% fall into that S category. SCs, who are these people? Well, the C's, you can see them over here. Attention to detail, quality control, analytical, concern for order, diplomacy. If there is no rule, we will write. Now, that's a good thing. However, it is the antithesis, the opposite of engagement and sociability and empathy and influence and so on. See what's going on? Let's go back to this chart. See where it's heavily leaning. Now, why does that occur? Very easily. The organization needs order. So the people who get promoted, your engineers, who's in the C-suite, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just telling you the news. This is what the reality is. And so, if you want leaders to lead, they have to have the competencies. They must be able to do. There are three big things that most leaders do. There's the people side of the business, there's the technical side, and the programming, or maybe you can call it the strategic side. And depending on the level of the organization you sit at, you do more or less of these things. So the team leader tends to pull, or the supervisor tends to pull more to technical, and this is how it should be. And then your managers tend to pull more to programming. And as you would notice, as we go up the level of organization, senior manager pulls more to people, and of course your executives pull even further. By the time you get to an executive position or a junior executive position, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time in the tech. You should be spending a lot of time in developing the people and guiding them and going taking them out front and not going for a walk, having them follow you and knowing exactly where you're going. That's what should be happening. So I did a meta-analysis of what is necessary in Industry 4.0. And a lot of these overlap with creating a gigabit society. I don't have the time to go into that, but a lot of them do overlap. Ethical leadership, building trust. Change leadership, supporting innovation and adoption. Communication skills, facilitating clarity and alignment. Do your people know where you are trying to go, and is everyone on the same journey? Visionary leadership, to be able to exploit the opportunities of today, navigating the challenges, collaborative skills. If we're not collaborating, we're going to be left behind. We don't get full productive potential of our team. We do not reap the collective creative genius. Leaders do not know how to collaborate. They do not reap the collective creative genius. Empowerment approach, emotional intelligence. I know we've used that over and over. I've worked with hundreds of organizations around the world. And most people, when they complain about the organization, they're not complaining about the organization. They're complaining about the person who is their leader, boss, person that they report to. And you are nodding in agreement because you have seen this as well. Adaptive leadership, the ability to adapt to changing needs and to boost satisfaction. Data-driven decision-making, fostering the ability to align the organization to goals of the customer and strategies, etc. And of course, building and executing strategy. Now, one of the challenges that many leaders are having, and I have seen this all over the Caribbean, people do not want to rock the boat. There are leaders who do not want to rock the boat. I can go into a whole historical discussion as to why we are like that. I shall today, however, I will tell you this. There is no way an organization is able to keep up what is being demanded on the global stage on an island if we don't rock the boat. But not wanting to rock the boat is about being safety seeking. So how do we develop these competencies? Because it's not enough to write a list of leadership competencies. All of these are later constructs. They do not, you can't measure them directly. If you tell someone, have emotional intelligence, be adaptable, you can't measure that. How do we develop the ability? Well, the question that you have to ask then is, what do you see a leader do if they were being adaptable, visionary? We can't put those into the human brain to see visionary ability and adaptability. But what we can do is look at the behaviors and make inferences. So this is the question that we have to answer. And so we have started supporting our clients by building these leadership frameworks that, first of all, operationalize the leadership constructs, make them have practical meaning, creating a practical roadmap so that these people who are not accustomed to leading in this way know what to do. Let me take 10 seconds on this. If I were to, I don't know, wire up a socket outlet, there's a set of steps that you would teach me how to do one after the other. But nobody does that for leadership. They tell us, have emotional intelligence, give feedback, coach people. But where is the manual? Yes, we need training, but if you've ever been to leadership training, and I've conducted lots of them, very often they don't get down deep into the knowledge. So we are helping organizations now to build their own leadership framework that gives a practical roadmap that is contextualized by their strategy, the culture, the industry, the environment, and having a step-by-step set of instructions, if they need it, for how to lead, including the evidential part. In other words, what will I see? If you are being innovative or you are driving innovation, what will I see? And so this is how it looks. We disaggregate the major components of what leadership should look like in that organization. One, each one of those will be a bucket of tasks, if you want, and then under each of those duties, we'll have some tasks, and each of those will have some steps. This is a roadmap. I have met executives who do not know how to properly give developmental feedback to their people. And I'm in a position after 25 years and working with organizations in 45 countries, I've stopped asking. I'm saying, this is a big gap. And I don't blame people, because that's not what we studied. I don't blame people, because that's not the skill set, the natural competencies that most people have, especially those in leadership roles. So here's a very simple example. If you have a mid-level leader, and you say, one of the things I would like you to do is to facilitate organizational innovation. The tasks associated with one of them would be facilitate innovative idea sharing. And then another step under that might be schedule an idea sharing workshop. And then another step under that might be develop an innovative idea worksheet so that you can gather that information. And of course, you can roll out a bunch of steps. Again, this is contextualized in the specific organization. So here's an example. I don't know if you can read this one. And we're doing this one, and I'm sharing this with their permission, where we're working with a company in the Bahamas. This is the power company in Grand Bahama Island. And we help them develop a leadership framework that is practical, these are their words, relevant and aligned to the corporate and industry standards. If you remember what happened in the Bahamas a few years ago, yeah, this the couple hurricanes decimated the place, and it shook up organizations. So what you found is that you had a lot of turnover, a lot of changes taking place in the organization, and as a result of that, what you also had is leaders not being sure what to do. Not technically, this is not the problem. Technically is not the problem. The challenge was on the other side. So I'm suggesting to you as members of CANTO that this is critical and this is something that you can do. You can develop a framework with marching orders for any level of leadership in your business. This is not focused on the technological at all. That part is much easier. The challenge at work is the people at work, it's not the technology. I want to invite you to take maybe a minute and respond to this survey. Just scan the QR code, grab the phone, it'll probably take you a minute. And so that we're gathering some information. There's a question there about rocking the boat as well. We're gathering some more information about leadership and how you are building your leadership pipeline in your organization. So looking forward to hearing from you. I'll be here for a few more hours. John will play a little bit later, head out. But I hope to see you in the Bahamas in the next few months, and hopefully you bring your HR people with you. Thank you so much.
For again highlighting the importance of people, even if it's daily consequence of technology, change, innovation. I would like to give a couple more seconds for the QR code on the screen for those that don't get a chance to scan it yet. There you go, just a couple seconds, so grab your phone. You doing good phone still? All right, good to go. So before I introduce our next guest on stage, I would like for everyone to please their attention on the screen as we have a short video that we would like to show. Short and straight to the point. This is the result of the winner of the CANTO Innovation Challenge, which I would like to introduce on stage to talk to us more about their product, their project. And on stage, I would like to call Kyle Tasmo Reggio, a packaging problem solver and co-founder of Gridify, which is not the concept. And also joining us online would be Cheyenne Boubre, a 23-year-old business information student at the UNAE SAT, also co-founder of Greenify. There she is, Cheyenne, welcome. And also on stage, Kyle Tasmorejo. So with you, I leave you the hands of the co-founders of Greenify, the winner of the CANTO Innovation Project. Kyle.
Yes. Wow, this is a big stage. I'm a little nervous, but let's start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you like that short video of our innovative product. My name is Kautas Merejo, and I'm proud to represent Greentify here in the Canto Connect. And we are the winners of the Canto Innovation Challenge. Our team consists of two members, namely me and my other teammate, Cheyenne Overeem. And today we are excited to share you of our innovative product called Art. During this presentation, we will walk you through what is art, the goal behind it, how it works, and its scalability, the technical aspect, and adaptability and design. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to my teammate Cheyenne to begin.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Cal mentioned, I'm Cheyenne Ofarim, and I'm happy that I can also present today. You must be thinking, what does ART stand for? ART stands for Automatic Recycling Trash Bin. And the reason why ART was created was to solve the growing problem of inefficient waste management and low recycling rates. It aims to make recycling easier and more accurate by automatically sorting materials like metal and plastic. By doing this, art helps reduce the environmental impact of waste and encourages more people to recycle. The ultimate goal is to make recycling smarter, improve sustainability, and contribute to a cleaner environment for everyone. We mainly have three goals: going green, recycle, and sorting. Going green, it speaks for itself. We want a cleaner world, a better lifestyle, and a better atmosphere. Recycling, we want less trash, a sustainability of resources, reduction of environment, and reduction of environmental pollution. And at last, we have sorting, um, efficient recycling, enhanced resource recovery, and it should, of course, be cost effective. Now we'll go over to how it works. The first thing that you will do is place your object on the designated platform. After the object has been placed on their designated platform, the sensors will go over to scanning the product, or the object, sorry. After the object has been scanned, it will go over to sorting. If it's a plastic object, it will go into the plastic bin. And if it's a metal object, it will go into the metal bin. I'll now go over to the scalability and the business viability. Here we will talk about the business model, the scalability, the sustainability, and of course, our future plans. Art sorts waste faster and more accurately than manual methods, reducing costs and cutting pollution, and of course, helping businesses meet their environmental regulations. We're targeting recycling companies, businesses, schools, families, and of course the governments. Um, our revenue will mainly come from selling the machines, offering maintenance, and partnering with recycling programs, and government funding and data analysis. Our costs will mainly include manufacturing, of course, maintenance of the product, marketing and R&D for enhancing the features that our product already has. Our key partners will mainly include recycling companies, sensor suppliers, sustainability groups, and retail chains offering rewards for recycling. Our focus is mainly on product development, manufacturing, marketing, and providing top-notch customer support. Scalability of art. Art is designed to grow and adapt. It's easily mass-produced, offering affordable, using affordable recycled materials. It's an IoT enabled. It's IoT enabled for remote monitoring and management, and partnership with retail stores, cities, and recycling companies to scale quickly, and of course, offer rewards like points that are redeemable at partner stores to encourage widespread adoption. And now we'll go over to the sustainability of art. As art is made from recycled material and uses solar power, staying eco-friendly and self-sustaining. And our future plans consist of offering the community an easy and efficient recycling solution. And if that works, we can work with different stores to maximize our impact through our reward system. I will now hand over the presentation back to Kyle, and thank you for your time and for listening.
Yes, thank you, Cheyenne. I will now talk over about the technical aspect of art. When we were building this product, we were thinking about what it can do and what it cannot do. What it can do is object detection, material detection, and material sorting. With object detection, what it means is it can detect the object that needs to be recycled, material detection and sorting. What that means is it can detect the type of material and it can sort it to the correct compartment when it detected the material. When we go back and can see it, you can have also what it cannot do yet. Currently, not all material can be detected. It currently detects only plastic and metal, and also it has a limitation on object compatibility. What that means is it only allows now only bottles or consumable items. Yeah, and it has the inability to manage mixed materials. What I mean by that is some bottles has plastic and metal components, which is hard for recycle. So that's quite a challenge. Oh, and lastly, the lack of self-diagnostic. When, when something goes wrong with the product, we have to manually go there to look what the problem is and how to fix it. Uh, if we can go to the next slide. Yes. The hardware of art is based around Arduino. Arduino is a little small computer, and we added some sensors that detects material frequency. So what that means is plastic has low frequency and metal has higher frequency because it's conductive. That's how we detect the type of material. Uh, Furthermore, that's the hardware side. For the software side, we use the framework Next.js and Python. Next.js is used for the front end, so the mobile app and the web app to monitor art. And Python is for data collection and processing of the data. With the data collection, it can collect the type of material is recycled and how many times it's recycled by a user. If we can go to the next slide, the, now I'm going to talk about the adaptability and the problem solving of R. Let's see. Yes. During our development of R, we faced some challenges, namely the technical expertise, where we had limited knowledge of how to build the product because it was something new. To face this challenge, what we did was talk to expertise that had more experience with Arduino, and we did a lot of self-study. We went to forums and read official documents. It was late hours studying, finding the right solution, the right code. It was a long time. Uh, the, Also, one big challenge was public interest. What does that mean is when art is a cool product, but it's only a wow factor for a limited of time. It will encourage users to recycle maybe like a week or 1 month. But to keep users engaged, what we introduced is a reward system. With a reward system, it keeps users engaged by recycling more. By recycling, they gain points, and they can use those points to exchange for discounts at stores or products or other services. Because who doesn't like free rewards, right? When recycling, you recycle, you receive points, you can get some free stuff, or you can get some good services. That's how that's the solution for public interest. Can we go to the next slide? Yes. Oh, it's almost, my time is up, but I'm going to go fast, okay? Uh, yes, the last slide is the UX and design. The U is the sign of the art. First, we designed art in a 3D with 3D software called Blender. From there, we visualize how it will look, and after that, we design it, the hardware. Now, the mobile app, so the front end side, we designed that in Figma, and based on the design, we build it in Next. This is the mobile app. If we go to the next slide, is the monitor app. So this web application will monitor all the deployed arts around the regions. If you can go to the next slide, uh, the one part of the monitor app, it can gather data because data it's very important in this day of age. With this data, you can do many things for marketing purposes or see what more consumable items is used. Yes. And that's all for this. Thank you. That's all. Thank you for this presentation and thank you guys.
But I do want to highlight one thing. Our children just saw what happened with this presentation, with the winners of the innovation challenge. These two students, talk about young generation, upcoming generation, they saw a problem, they saw an opportunity, and not only solved the problem of waste management, but took that, made it a business, made it scalable for consumers, and also added a part of with waste, gamifying it, getting people involved, getting communities involved. So I think we do a bigger applause than that. And also to give thanks to the judges of the Innovation Challenge, Amber Care, ALIV, Leasing from Blue Americas, Angelica Sanso from ESCP, and Fergus Pinas from Dallas School. So before we move on to our next panel, 1% because we have a surprise for you and also share virtual, joining virtual. So I would like to let the CANTO members here we go. And this is the moment that we also recognize the amazing innovation and innovative solution you guys came up with, and also the winners of Innovation Challenge. And that is me contributing for the success, and we hope to see much more of you guys, much more success in really fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, of course. I'm being seen. We're going to do better. So, in a couple of seconds, we're going to move on to our panel of this morning. But just like yesterday, I would like to ask everyone to stand up because I'm a big fan of watching. It's not, you've seen some things. Let's stretch out the necks, shoulders, take a moment to do some deep breaths. I think we can refer to that. Breathe in, stretch out the shoulders, do a little waist action, and get it out. Couple of 3 deep breaths. There. When you're ready, please stand your seat. So for today's panel, focusing on the fintech needs and also the evolution of payments in the Caribbean, I would like to say our moderator, Mr. Romar, with the chair of Curaçao Fintech Association, and also the Chief Technical Officer of XO. So if you are giving us a few more.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Welcome. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here today moderating this discussion on FinTech meets Telecom, evolution of payments in the Caribbean. As you heard, my name is Jerome Boer. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ICTWL, your local systems integrator and FinTech. Because local is important. Services, knowing the culture, way how things go from here in Caribbean. ICTWL has been an affiliate member to CANTO for many years, contributing to the technology trends. You may recall some years ago, we did the first talks on Bitcoin and blockchain and sovereign identity. Many years ago. Now you see it's all over. We also contributed through the Venture Supplier Committee to what you now know to be the market. So we've been busy. Today, I'm wearing a different hat. As the chairman of the board of the Curaçao FinTech Association, I'm excited about our new partnership with CANTO. A partnership bringing awareness and increased adoption of FinTech solutions throughout the Caribbean. Over the years, I had the opportunity to witness firsthand the transformational power of FinTech. How it breaks down barriers, drives inclusion, and opens up new possibilities for business and consumers alike. In a region where financial access and efficiency remain critical challenges, the intersection of FinTech and telecom presents an extraordinary opportunity to redefine how we do payments. We're fortunate today to have an incredible panel of experts. I have to say, they were my first pick, and they agreed to come. So I'm very happy to have them. They will bring their own personal perspectives on the subject. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists, the Chief Financial Officer at Telem Group, Mr. Randall Atto. Give him a superstar. Welcome to the stage. Mr. Atto will be bringing his deep insights in the financial strategies of telecom operators while navigating the FinTech space. Then we have Senior Director of Sales Operations Excellence at Cable and Wireless, Mr. Javier Mendez Castillero. Javier is at the helm of driving digital payment solutions in all of the flow markets. Good one, Javier. And to have some balance. We have all of the tech guys, yeah, doing all of the business and engaging with the consumers. We also need the other side, right? So I would like to introduce Mr. Glenshire Maduro, Head of Payments at the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. Glenshire Maduro. Together, we will explore not only the challenges, but also the incredible opportunities at the intersection of FinTech and telecom. With this, let's dive in. I'll begin posing a few questions, but I'd like to encourage you to stay tuned and engage, because more towards the end of the presentation, we'll try to make room for some questions from the audience. Thank you. Yes, so let's get comfortable. I've prepared a few questions, and I'm hoping we have some interesting discussion along the way. Right. So no, I think I won't be needing this though, but I will. Yes, that's the one we need to have. It's good. All right, let's have a warm-up question. Warm-up questions. Okay, so from your perspectives, what are the most significant opportunities that fintech can unlock for the Caribbean payments landscape, especially when integrated with telecoms services?
Hello, everyone. From my point of view, it says education to the consumers of the benefits of not using real cash and going to the digital payments. So the convenience, can do this at any moment without waiting in line, without dealing with opening up. The thing is the technology is there, people are still uneasy or uncomfortable and have fear of the system. So education is a key thing.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Ha.
Good morning. From my point, I think St. Martin has some penetration over 100% mobile. So I think the combination with the fintech providers, with the infrastructure of St. Martin, will enable every citizen within St. Martin to have access to the fintech services.
Okay, thank you. Good point. So I think both of the telecoms are looking at the consumer side and the benefits that their customers will have. Great, awesome, thank you. Their benefits will have with fintech. How does though this? Is there a business in to this? Yes, the customers are very important, and that's part of the reason why we're sitting here. But does that translate to any additional value on your business side?
Value, yes, not necessarily economically value. It's more in the customer experience. So by providing an easy way to pay to customers, they can do this at an earlier time at their convenience, and it saves a lot of problems. When you pay late, you kick off a bunch of processes, which is suspension, recognition, things like that, which are very limiting to the customer. So if you pay on time, nothing happens to you. So I need to make sure that if you want to pay, you are able to pay easily. So that's the key, availability.
Right, of course. And St. Martin is a very diverse situation with two countries being on one island. Does having fintech have any impact on how the population is organized?
Not really, but with fintech, you will be able to increase the efficiency of the operations. So basically, we are looking to partner with some fintech providers so people can pay everywhere around the country. As you may know, St. Martin is small, but traffic can be a big issue. So our office is what we call over the hill. So it can take you close to an hour to get to the office. So having this possibility for the customers to pay everywhere in St. Martin will alleviate them as well.
Awesome. Okay, so now a question for our regulator. Yes. So regulators play a crucial role in the financial innovation. And depending on where you're standing, I mean, there are both sides to the coin, making sure everyone is safe, and the other side, allowing for innovation. And that can sometimes be a difficult balance. How do the regulatory frameworks that you apply support or possibly hinder fintech? And what would you recommend?
Okay, as you mentioned, what
Can you guys hear him properly? Yeah.
Yes. Hello? No. Okay. As a regulator, the central bank in the payments area plays a role, especially where you talk about giving licenses to providers in the payments landscape. Traditionally, you see that the banking sector, financial sector, they were the players in doing the payment solutions to the customers. But what lately you see that fintech, due to the fact that they can provide to the evolution of technology, they collaborate with the financial sector, with the banks, to provide solutions to the customers. And not only collaborate only with the financial sector, with the banks, but they can also provide payment services on themselves to consumers. For that, we need the central bank should provide, come with legislation and to the supervision on those fintechs. And at this moment, for Curaçao and St. Martin, as I'm representative of the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, we have different laws in legislation process to be enacted by both governments. We have the laws that supervision on payment service provider. The second one is supervision on virtual asset service provider, and also a legislation on oversight. When we enacted those laws that provide the central bank with much more power to regulate the market, and also what you see that when you have big tech that would like to provide services on the domestic countries in the Caribbean, they will look whether there is the regulation, the laws are in place. So that is one of the things that the central bank is looking at, is providing, together with the parliament, the minister, to come with laws for on this front. Talk about whether fintech has a future. Technology is the future. That means fintech is the future. We have seen for a couple of years already, for years, that fintech companies providing solutions to the financial sector in the Caribbean, all around the world. We have seen that, for example, in China. We have heard with Alipay, the WeChat, and also in Africa, the M-Pesa. All those things are coming from the technology, the fintechs coming into the payments landscape from where traditional the banks were operating. So I see that definitely fintech has a future in the payments. Talking about telecom companies, one of the characteristics of a telecom company, they have high potential customers, where you see where banks, their customer citizens who don't have a bank account, they are unbanked. But as Mr. Harper mentioned, in St. Martin, there's 100% penetration on telephone. So this is a potential customers to be on board in the digital world, to be part of what we call the financial inclusion, that you will see that also the unbanked population, the citizens, can be part, and that's why I mentioned that also telephone companies has a future in payments.
Sure. Now, you mentioned the telecom laws, telecom in fintech, community today. Who creates those laws? And who do you talk to the market? Do you collaborate with the market in creating those laws? So I can imagine as a central bank not being in the market, sometimes it's difficult to take into account the other side of the coin, like I was just saying.
Oh, definitely, the central bank, we are the ones that drafting those laws, but in close collaboration with you all, the Curaçao FinTech Association, with the banking community, and also with experts around the world. So we don't invent the circle or the wheel. We're not going to invent the wheel. So what we are doing right now in collaboration with those partners, we presented to the parliament and the minister with those laws. So,
all right, great, thank you. And now, despite the push of digital payments, because of many central banks are looking at digitizing payments because it gives more insight and it has some efficiency that you lack with, let's say, with paper and coin. But despite the push for digital payments, cash still remains in much of the Caribbean the main method of payment. What are the primary barriers to digital payment adoption? What would you say, Mr. Hart?
There was a study done by the Central Bank and the Department of Statistics in St. Martin, and approximately 70% of the population of St. Martin are unbanked, and that is due because of lack of open of income, no local ID. So those customers don't have access to the bank. I think the problem, even with the fintech, is the lack of trust. People don't trust that their money are safe. And so you need to kind of educate them on that level. And there's also some issue of digital literacy. Not everybody can work with a smartphone. They can make calls, they can make pictures, they can send WhatsApp. The most advantage of the phone are not known.
Okay, interesting. And Glenn, do you think these are things that we can overcome in the near future?
Near future is a big word, but definitely fintech as digital payments is the future. But we have some issues why the cash is still king in the Caribbean. First of all, let me talk about Curaçao and St. Martin. That is my area that we know. We have, as Mr. Hato mentioned, 17 to 20% of the population is unbanked, don't have a bank account. One of the reasons for that is we have a lot of undocumented citizens on the islands. So people that coming in, immigrants that don't have come through the proper procedure, they live, they work on the islands, but they don't have they are undocumented. So these are the ones that are still using cash. We also, in Curaçao and St. Martin, we have what we call the gambling, the lottery. The lottery companies, do not have a bank account. When you buy lottery, when you cash in or when you win, all those things are cash-based. The reason for that is that the credit institutions, the bank, de-risk those companies, those gambling companies, and the reason for that is for the U.S. correspondent banks demand the local banks that they cannot have those customers in their books due to the AML, CFT requirements, etc. So these are the things that if they don't have, they are unbanked, what you can do is to provide them, the telco companies, the fintechs are coming in place, everybody has a phone, you can create an e-wallet with money, and right now what the central bank is doing, based on that note, we are introducing that, coming with legislation that PSPs, fintechs, can be part of what we have, the instant payment network. So bypassing the financial institutions, bypassing the banks, so that fintechs, what we call the payment service providers, can also be part of the domestic digital world. And then you can have an unbanked citizen can do a payment to a banked one. So these are the things that we are looking at.
Great, and we've seen yesterday, we've seen some conversation about digital wallets. So I think I'm already prospecting my next panelist for the next CANTO session on fintech. But this time, Javier, do you know what role could telecom operators play in bridging this gap?
Okay, what you say, a portion of the population not legally registered, but likely they have a phone number. So we are becoming another way of identity. You have a phone number. We might give you the phone number even with a fake name, but once you start using the number, that number is you, represents you. We do know payment behavior, we know your activity. So the telco, with all that data that we hold about how you operate, can become a nice source of evaluating the creditworthiness of a customer without having a bank account. So we are reaching that payment behavior that today undocumented people don't have. They do use, they pay, just don't see it, but we can provide that information. So becoming or part of a credit bureau with the banks and telcos and reaching the two identity, your national ID and your phone number ID. That would be a very interesting approach.
That's very interesting. You mentioned that. I was alluding to a conversation a few years ago about sovereign identities, and I think this kind of links to that. How do you make possible that people can identify themselves and authorize transactions without them being linked to a particular government structure? Because not everybody has the possibility to do this. Okay, so telcos as fintech. That's the side way we get into. So telecom companies increasingly offer payment services, right? And potentially becoming fintech players themselves. Yesterday we saw TSTT, TSTT and GTT mentioning their mobile wallets. Is Cable and Wireless looking into going into that direction?
We have created a parallel company within the holding. So it's not the brand of the operator, it's called Minehut, but it's part of the group where we are now providing fintech services, and we are starting with the micro loans. We have a pilot running in Jamaica where, as our consumer, our customers, we know you can pay, we offer you to take a small loan up to $800, and we'll give you the loan and we'll give it to you as a digital credit card. So you have an actual credit card digitally, and then you can buy whatever Visa or MasterCard is accepted. So we are testing this mostly because we have this data, and the business is not making money on the loan. You make money, but that's not the real identity, and how this is creating this overall knowledge of payment behavior and helping to have a credit bureau across the Caribbean. I believe there's only 2 credit bureaus in the Caribbean, and those are absolutely necessary to do business. And the fact that there is no information about your customers, you don't sell them or give them special deals because you don't know. So knowing your customer is very important. We can provide help to create this credit bureau. We cannot be the credit bureau. We don't want to be. We provide information for the government to take the decision. Let's create a credit union or a credit bureau, and telcos and banks can benefit from this.
Okay, so providing credit services, financial services, is this in combination with selling phones and subscriptions, or is this a completely different?
It's a side company, the same group, but it has nothing to do with everything. We provide the knowledge of our customers, that data.
Okay.
How good of a payer are you before I offer you a loan?
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. And Mr. Hato, we've seen in telecoms have traditionally offered bundles in combinations with phones, with doing some financial services around these subscriptions. But we also see the rise of buy now, pay later services that some banks are offering or wants to offer. It's become very popular of late, but also fintechs are going into that space in order to create services around that area. Do you see Telem offering these kinds of services in order to gain market share?
I don't think so. I think given the size and the constraint of operation on the size of Telem, we will probably partner with fintech. We're not going to develop any fintech in-house. We don't have those capabilities. We will make sure that our network is robust. One problem with a lot of these fintechs is that when your data is down, is finished, you cannot access your account. So what you saw in M-Pesa, they introduced what they call reverse billing. So the charges for the data usage is carried by the fintech, and so the customer always has access to accounts. So we are working more on enabling our network so that the fintechs that want to work with us can work on a smoothly way. But we're not going to do fintechs in-house.
All right. So you mentioned partnerships with fintech companies. How do fintech companies help you do your business?
For example, we are partnering with CANTO, and so that will help the efficiency of the bill payment. We're looking to partner with another fintech upcoming, Bagafasi. So we're looking to various collaborations so we can offer enhanced value to our customers and efficiency to our own operations.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Telecoms is also a regulated space, right? I mean, we have many colleagues here on the floor that come together at every CANTO to discuss all of the regulatory challenges that govern the telecom space. Now, Glenshire, your organization regulates the finance space. Do you guys ever talk with each other?
Okay. Indirect. So right now, since last year, the central bank introduced what we call the National Payment Council. So the National Payment Council is a platform where providers, the regulators, and the consumers are coming together to talk about the important things about payments in general. So then you have, as I said, one of the regulators is the central bank, and we know technology. Then we have the Bureau of, what do you call it, BTP? They are also part of the National Payment Council. So that is one of the platforms where we bring consumer, providers, and regulators together, and that's the place where we talk with the regulator as well. The other regulators.
Right, correct. I can recall a number of years back. I think it was the local telco. I think it was GTS. You were also there, I think. Ancient history, yes. Yes, well, we go around, huh? But was hoping to leverage the balance that they have on the, the core balance, the prepaid balance, in order to facilitate payments. That was a very early on attempt to do that, right? To do peer-to-peer payments kind of thing using that balance. Of course, it had more complications because of the additional costs that come around prepaid. But I can remember that caused quite a stir at the central bank at that time. Do you know what the concern was at that time?
Okay. The concern was based on the laws. The current bank statute dictates that who can have a bank account at the central bank or financial institutions, the government or government-related institutions. And it is very strict that says if you're not mentioned in that category, you cannot have a bank account at the central bank. And that is one part. That you have the telecom companies that would like to come into this payment space. They would like to partner, for example, with the banks, but the banks see them as a competitor. So then they say, okay, we would like to have a direct access to our RTGS, our instant payment network. And that is a point right now that we are looking at. With the new legislation, it is covered, but at this moment, the legislation is not enacted by the parliament, so we cannot do anything about it. But we are looking with the current legislation that we have right now, that is supervision on the credit institutions, that we can allow others, fintech companies or payment service providers, with different special conditions to come into the market and to be part of the payments network as well.
All right, so possibilities are open. Right? Okay, so I have A very interesting topic that I did not tell them. They don't know that I'm going to ask this, but it is very relevant. Just last week, the U.S. government announced they will be fully supporting Bitcoin and Bitcoin-like currencies. And also, and this is very interesting, I don't know if you read this, Venture, they are basically banning central bank digital currencies.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's a very interesting thing. I was reading and I think I read it like 3-4 times just to make sure I didn't misread.
You mean the Trump government?
Well, you said it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can expect everything from from Trump. I
Yes.
think you're.
But depending on how you look at it, the fact of the matter is it's out there.
Yes.
Man, expressing support for an industry that has been placed in the shadows for the most of the time, and now having this flip, at least in positioning, right? Saying this is what we want to do, whether you like it or not. And this is interesting because of two things. One side of it is, of course, we've had a couple of years ago, we had the initiative of the central bank investigating the possibility of doing their own digital currency, right? And now this is happening, and so we also know that the Eastern Caribbean was also doing that. Do you see any? Let's just assume for a little bit that this is what's going to happen. Do you see any influence or impact of that positioning on how we see our future, or do you think, no, the US is that's nice, but they're going to do their thing and we're going to do our thing?
No, what you see globally that with the central bank digital currency is most on a for they introduce it for their territory. Okay, so you mentioned you have Bahamas, Barbados, the ECB, central bank, and also the China. You have, I think, Latin America also. Some initiatives in the Europe they're looking at, and in the coming years they're going to come with the central bank digital currencies. But right now it's specific for their territory, and the clue is another benefit is to make to connect those central bank digital currencies with each other, so you can pay from one country to the other using the central bank digital currency. But that will be the next phase. So, and then most probably Trump is not more in office. So then,
well,
then
you know, Bitcoin is always easy. We don't need to build it; it's already there. So, but question, because you say, well, every country has their own thing, and they'll do their thing, and we'll do our thing. But our correspondent banks are mostly there. So if that becomes okay in the U.S., does that have any impact on it being more on the relationships that we have and the limitations that the correspondent banks put on our local banks in order to work with?
Okay, for more than 10, 15 years, you have seen that, as I mentioned, the de-risking of banks in the Caribbean. So what does it mean? That the correspondent banks, especially in the U.S., they break a banking relationship with the banks in the Caribbean. And the reason for that is the area, geographical, we're close to Latin America, close to Venezuela, and all those things with money laundering. And that is one of the reasons that the U.S. banks cut ties with several banks in the Caribbean. Side note, let me mention that right now in the CARICOM countries, they asked 2 years ago, they asked the central banks to come with a solution to be able to do payments between the CARICOM islands, not using the U.S. banks for that. And right now we have a pilot going on between at the central bank in Bahamas and the Barbados, where the fintech is come with a solution. And I'm also part of the technical working group that is working on those solutions. In 3 weeks, we are together in Bahamas to look how we can accomplish that, come with solutions where we do not use the U.S. correspondent banks to do payments between those islands. Because right now, when you want to do a payment, for example, from Curaçao to Jamaica, it has to go through the U.S. correspondent banks. And the U.S. correspondent banks, with all their requirements, AML, etc., they are very tough on others and very lenient on themselves. So that is a part of the world you cannot.
So I would like, this is very important, folks. This is very important. The ability for the Caribbean islands to be able to exchange money without going outside, it's kind of like the internet, right? You want to talk to your neighbor, but your WhatsApp is going all the way around the world to come back. It's the same is kind of happening with your money also. And this is changing it. That's great. That's great. Love it. Love it. So a question for all of you. Now, staying on the topic, Bitcoin has proven to be a viable payment method. And I don't say this lightly, folks. I don't say it lightly. If you go outside now, there would be around 75 locations on Curaçao where you can use your Bitcoin, make payments, buy services, whatever it is that they offer, right? Curaçao is in the region. For the size that we have more locations than Venezuela, than Colombia, than Chile, and going down South of America. Look it up, BTC map. So it is a viable payment method. Now, but the volatility of cryptocurrencies has been a concern. Yes? So do you see cryptocurrencies becoming a mainstream payment method in the Caribbean?
Short term, not. Because of those reasons that you mentioned, and also that accessibility for the public at large to those services. And what you've seen is the financial literacy is a factor for adoption, even for central bank digital currency that is in pilot in Bahamas, Barbados, etc. The adoption is very low because of they don't trust anything. They don't trust things that you say you can lose your money you lose your boat, you can use your money. So this is one of the things that I don't see at the short term, that virtual assets, tokenization, and Bitcoin solutions will be mainstream. However, it is coming, as you mentioned, but as a central bank, we are looking at systematic risks, bigger things. So at this moment, since it's still in the early phase of adoption, the central bank doesn't look as a systemic risk on that. So right now, we leave the market develop itself, and then we will come with the regulations on that part.
So it's fine paying with Bitcoin at the supermarket, right? I think that's a yes already. But a question to you, Javier. Will you accept cryptocurrencies for payment for your services?
We explored a couple of years during the pandemic to accept payments in crypto, and the decision of the corporation is too much exposure to the risk, to the fluctuation. So we found a company in the middle, says, I will take any cryptocurrency and they offer like a 20 some, and I will convert that into cash immediately to you. So removing the risk. And we were considering this, and at the end the project died because the implementation and the regulation for the banks to prove that you are taking cash for all of this, it was so cumbersome that we abandoned the project. And also we decided who's going to pay with a cryptocurrency? Because if you have cryptocurrency, you have a credit card. It's very likely that you do not have a credit card. If you have crypto, you go, I am a necessity service. You will pay me, you find a way to pay me. I don't have to give you a crypto. It's not needed for us. So it was too much investment and too much risk, so we abandoned it. At this point, in my company, very conservative, American, regulated, I don't think anytime soon we'll be accepting cryptocurrency.
All right, thank you for that. That's an honest answer. Mr. Had.
We accept Antillean guilders, dollars, euros, and soon Caribbean guilders. That's it.
That's it. Well, you know, the thing is though, last time I had a conversation with about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, not only Bitcoin, it's blockchain also and all of that. I think Bitcoin was at around 1,000, one Bitcoin. How much is a Bitcoin now? It breaks my heart. It's not big. Well, you see, you can talk to him. So, yeah, it's a lot of money. But these are all the questions that I have. I would like to give the opportunity to the audience. If you have burning questions, now is the time. Anyone? We don't bite. Yes, there you go. One to kick off.
Good morning, gentlemen. Julian Rawls from the Suboptic Foundation. I was interested in the idea that the telcos collect a lot of data on their users and could use that to help the fintechs provide services. Are there any privacy issues in the Caribbean? Certainly in Europe and I think in North America too. That would raise eyebrows.
Hello? Yes, so obviously this is data protection. So we as an American company, we really have a data protection. We follow the local regulation. And at the end of the day, what the law says, or the regulation, is you cannot provide PII, which is private identified information of the customer. So what we do, there is a phone number, and that number has behavior and attributes. I sell information as a aggregated. I am not identifying a particular thing. I create a profile. You look like a bunch of these people who behave this way. Therefore, I'm going to assume that you follow a seminal pattern and I give you a score. So that can be done. So we never use any, we actually, I don't have any names. It's just a phone number. Yes, you can consider the phone number as a privacy issue because I identify one person, but we use it aggregated. When we do it to the bank, I don't tell this particular customer. Yes, obviously, I'm very particular. I'm very afraid to violate the law because it's significant penalties on this, and really it's not that difficult. So you can do data without infringing the law.
Any comments? No? All right. We do have privacy laws in Curaçao. I think there's a department, governmental department that is taking that and that responsibility. And what you see mostly is that the privacy laws are very aligned with the European laws. At least for us, that is mostly the case. Although usually not being said, and adapted to the realities of what we have in the Caribbean.
And European are more difficult or more constricted than the US. Yes, US is more lax.
Any other questions?
This was also for Javier for the most part. If we're utilizing phone numbers, someone says bank account number, that sort of sounds loosely like what it is. There are controls around potential spoofing of that number and individuals being given an opportunity to access that account if
Yes, you're talking about possible fraud and identity theft. That's why you have the two-way verification and things like that. We are very keen about someone requesting a swing swap because most of you use your phone number as a validating for the SMS. If I can swing swap your number, then I own your number and I can do that, right? So yes, all of this is fraud, this fraud prevention, fraud tactics. I actually come from that world, working in a bank, being the anti-fraud person. So I'm very keen on this, but what it happens, it is absolutely very, very, very small. And the way I used to explain this, you cannot legislate on rule for the minority, you need to do it for the majority. Yes, acknowledge it will be some fraud, but in the scheme of things, it's less than 1 per 1,000. So you are benefiting 99.9, and just a small piece will be bad, but you're giving a service for everybody else. So don't be afraid of that. You need to deal with the problem, not avoid it.
Thank you, Javier. A last question, burning question? No? All right. Then I would like to thank all of you for your attention, and I would like to especially thank Javier for contributing to the panel, and Mr. Hato, Randall for contributing to the panel, and Glencher continuing to the panel. Thank you, folks, and a big round of applause for our first FinTech panel. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for enlightening us further on the bridge between fintech and also telecom, as we, at the end of the day, all serve the same customers, right? We all want to, let's say, contribute to a future where, customer-centric, the experience is enhanced anywhere and everywhere at the end of the day. Thank you so much also, Javier. I'll just put it here for a second. So before we move on to our next speaker, I have one announcement that I would like to make, is that one of the beautiful things about CANTO Connect is that we also want to hear more about you. So we've launched a survey that is now live on the CANTO app, where you can share your feedback, things that have gone well, things that can use improvement, in order for us to make sure that the next edition of CANTO is even more better or greater than this one. So go to the mobile app, scroll down on the homepage, and where it's about sessions, if it's about sessions, speakers, or overall experience, we just want to hear how your experience was these last 2 days. Up next, we have the founder and CSO of Caribbean Business Consultants, who is going to give us a little bit more information about the Caribbean transformation for telco, from telco to techco. So I leave you in the hands of Melissa Harris, who is the founder and CSO of Caribbean Business Consultants. So please, with you, Melissa Harris. So please, welcome. Welcome here on stage. Let me get your mic sorted. There you go. Is that good for you?
Wonderful. Hello, 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 hello. Well, I'm delighted to be here today, even though I'm the last speaker of the conference. I consider that an honor. It's going to change a little bit of the focus that I had on some of the PowerPoint slides, thanks to Kimberly. I'm part of the CANTO marketing team, who did such a great job in fancying up our slides. So I'm going to be sharing with you some resources around the world that you may find helpful to transform your companies from a telephone company, telco, to a techco, technology company. Now, you know, we have 1G, 2G, 3G, 4, 5G, 6G, et cetera. Well, we've kind of got a G up here, the word transformation. Years ago, we called it change management. And now we're transforming digital economy, transforming the gigabit environment, transforming this and that and everything. So that's the new buzzword. And so I got this title from a project that we're working on at Digi in Belize. They're wanting to train their whole company as a first step in the culture transformation that has to happen as we evolve in the future. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not really into change. You know, it's kind of nice to do things the way you've always done it. It's more comfortable. I started out my career a long, long time ago with AT&T, biggest company in the world and the biggest telco. And they were selling pots. Raise a hand. Who knows what POTS means? Show of hands. It shows how long you've been in the industry. Few. Yell it out. What does POTS stand for? Plain old telephone service. And I had planned to start with AT&T and retire. And things happened. Technology, back then, cellular, competition, a lot of things happened. And as a result, I ended up having the most wonderful transformation from my career. I founded Telecom Training Corporation because I had headed up AT&T's national training organization. And so I founded Telecom Training Corporation. We have 700 contract trainers that, like me, grew up in the industry, so we're industry experts. We've worked on 7 continents with over 200 telephone companies, and typically we're only invited in when it's a mission-critical project. No one wants to spend money on training, right? It's the last thing you want to spend money on. But if people's C-level executives, you know, their bonuses might be tied to their net promoter scores. That's how we got in with ATN on Guyana Telephone years ago and with VIA in the U.S. Virgin Isles. They were really focused on the customer, and we really needed to move that net promoter score forward. So what we've done, you see on the slide over here, the term Caribbean business consultants. Since I've been working wonderfully in the Caribbean since the first transformation, when we moved in the region from monopoly to liberalization. I happened to be speaking at the Rural Cellular Association in Miami, and somebody said, hey, the Caribbean's about to go through a huge change. And I went, oh my, monopoly to a competitive environment? That's what I did at AT&T, as we had to totally change. And so I got on a plane the next week, popped down, was speaking at the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and all of a sudden CANTO was a couple of months later. And so I'm an old timer here at CANTO and love CANTO. Even though we work all over the world. In the US, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile are our clients. I'll tell you a little story about Comcast, who's been our biggest client for the last 15 years. It's kind of like, well, they're a cable company. What did that have to do with a telco? Well, Comcast hired a bunch of the people I worked with at AT&T to handle indirect sales channel. 80% of the business in AT&T was coming from indirect. And a lot of companies aren't that confident when you're managing like a big box retailer in the US, like Target or Walmart. They're not your employees, so it takes a different skill set. So that's how we got into Comcast, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second. So I've already talked to you about Caribbean business consultants. We have a team of people who have worked in the Caribbean. They know this industry, and it's from start to finish, regulatory, networking, you name it, to, I guess, my favorite, frontline customer service and salespeople. Because you know our frontline teams, that's who interfaces with the customer. That is who makes or breaks us. And a lot of time, us in this room think that they look at life, our front line, like we look at it. But here we are, and they're not. We see the big picture. We see the why. And so I've always been an ambassador to make sure the front line really gets, why are we changing? Because most people don't want to transform. Have you heard of this acronym? I'll go over that in just a second. Okay, so we've got also, how many of you have heard the term fractional executive? Show of hands, look around the room. Fractional executive. One person here. 2 people here. Wonderful. It's a whole new strategy around the world to pull in executives on a part-time basis so that you might want to hire the former CEO of AT&T here in the Caribbean. He's got a bunch of money, great pension plan, but might be interested in giving back to Africa, Caribbean, the Pacific Islands, in their area of expertise, and maybe work 10 hours a week, 10 hours a month. Fractional is different from consultants, from contractors, and we've written an article on the transformation and other transformation in the Caribbean of how a cost-effective strategy of fractional executives can make a huge difference in our region. Let's say you've got a company that they have a CEO and they have departed for whatever reason. How long is it going to take to find someone in the region to take that job? But what if you could have a fractional executive, not full-time, not needing pensions, not needing benefits, to help? So that's another resource that's happening worldwide. So read the article in the CANTO magazine that gives you a foundation of this new, cool, cost-effective executive strategy for the region. Oh yes, here we are. And so I've talked about Caribbean Business Consultants, Fractional Executives Network, 8 minutes, Telecom Training Corporation, and CANTO. I've been chairing the Sales and Marketing Committee for CANTO for a number of years, and I'm delighted that the board has asked me to re-establish the HR committee for CANTO. I used to chair it years ago when the title of HR was Personnel Manager. And now we've got Chief People Officers at Digicel and at Cable and Wireless. So you see a chief changed significantly, transformed from being a personnel manager. Okay, great. So we'd love to have some of you join our new HR and training committee, so let us know if you're interested. Okay, I'm gonna kind of breeze through this agenda. Some key points, we're at a crossroads. Telecom and technology companies, we're coming together, merging in this. We are transitioning to a techco, technology company, to focus on our customers, what they want, because that's the key. What are our enterprise customers wanting? What are our governments wanting? And that's us as traditional telcos as we evolve what we're wanting to do. So evolution, innovation, and resilience. So there's 3 reasons why we're having to change and transform and spend money and time to do all this. Number 1, customers are demanding it. We can't make money selling landline, connectivity, POTS line services anymore. Gone are those days, as much as some of us enjoyed it. So the customers want all these cool things we've been hearing at the conference. Competition has changed. Guess what? Y'all, how many have heard the term MSP? You know, we got ISPs that are competitors. MSP, show of hands. Look around the room. 1. This is really important for the region. Managed service providers. They provide IT solutions now to your customers. Your enterprise and government are using MSPs to supplement their existing internal IT organizations. And guess what? We're going to have the same knowledge to do that as we transition to a techco. We got to learn how AI and cybersecurity and managed Wi-Fi and fixed wireless access and private 5G networks. Our frontline people know how to upgrade a smartphone. So we're going to really have to upskill and move forward in that respect. So MSPs, our competitors, I know when I first got here in the Caribbean, we were like, oh, we're monopolies, we don't have any competitors, and there were ISPs all over the place working in mom and pop garages. So it's kind of a hidden competitive environment. Big tech, startups, that's who the new competitors are doing, and we have to compete against them, these technology people. And revenue, as we said, we gotta sell this stuff, or they're going to take that revenue from us. So there's 3 major shifts in transformation. You've been hearing it. Business, the business model has got to shift. Number 2, the mindset, and oh my, changing minds doesn't happen in a day or a week or a year or even a few years. Culture change. It takes time and focus and attention. And of course, operations. And the 3 key areas that transformation will entail, and this summarizes the whole conference with our excellent speakers that we've had. Technology adoption. We got to be confident internally before we can sell and support it externally and lead the key areas of evolution. The culture shift, as I said, I wish we could change it in a minute. We got to focus and focus and focus and focus. And the partnerships. Isn't it fun that now our competitors that we hated, now we're playing with them. What are these partnerships? What are these ecosystems? So it's a whole new way of being creative and innovative and trusting that we can navigate. Sometimes we'll be a partner, sometimes we'll be the enemy again. But we can manage that. So technology adoption, we've already talked, I'm not going to belabor this. Cloud and edge computing, AI and automation, IoT integration, lots of cool things. And the cultural shifts, though, going from a network focus. In the old days at CANTO, you know who showed up? All the engineers and their team. Because we were focused, the network, we needed the biggest network. That was our competitive advantage. We're the first 5G. Things change. Who is focusing on what the customer wants? If they want fintech solutions, if they want all kinds of things, that's what we have to keep focusing on, our customer. Foster innovation, encourage experimentation. One of my favorite stories is Apple has an annual best failure of the year. For those of us who have grown up in a monopoly, we're many times scared to try something new because we might get fired. So the concept of encouraging innovation, particularly for those of us from a monopoly, that's a real culture change. Yeah, we don't want people failing, but if they do, they've tried, what did we learn? What can we do differently? And kind of my favorite, reskilling and upskilling. As we move forward, that's the only way. I wanted to tell you, the MSPs I mentioned a moment ago, the IT technology companies, managed service providers that are all over the region here and all over the world. I went to an MSP conference in Tampa 2 years ago. They had 50 vendors providing sales training specifically for MSPs. I speak at conferences in telecom all over the world. There's never a sales training vendor. I'm about the only one here, and I'm usually speaking or something. So yes, training, but it needs to be customized and focused. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. You need to be sure you get a return on investment, and the way you have to do that is to Richard Solomon's comment. Your leaders, your managers have to focus every meeting, every weekly meeting, reinforce, coach, create an environment where people work. We've already talked about partnerships, platforms, integrated solutions. Great. So a couple of global examples. I remember Satar and Aruba when I first started working here, and they were a little, like, I think, annoyed at the cable operator. And it was such a cool competitive strategy. They decided not to compete, they just bought them. I love it when you have the money to buy your competitor. Comcast, in the last 6 months, has just bought 2 MSPs because they thought it'd be easier to hire experts in that space instead of trying to invent it internally. Saudi Telecom, they've done a cool thing. I wanted to mention, though, more importantly, since the fintech focus, how many of you know Gary Sinclair, Cable and Wireless in Jamaica years ago? Anybody in the room know that? Well, he's kind of a celebrity bigwig, went to the Bahama Telephone. He's now in fintech. And last week he contacted me and said, Melissa, we want you to design the technology product training for fintechs that we own, our portfolio of them in the Caribbean region. Because he says, I know it's not telecom, but the fintech groups have to know technology just like the telcos. So I'm kind of excited. And I'll just mention GSMA was here, and they're excited about supporting the region, and they've reached out to us. My old boss runs at GSMA. They reached out to us to help deploy new and innovative training solutions throughout the Caribbean region. So that's a hot off the press that I'm really excited about. So you'll see more about that in the future. Safaricom in Kenya, though. We worked with them about 15 years ago, and they led the world in terms of money market payments, online, cell phones, and we didn't even have smartphones back then. Okay, so you know, platforms, telehealth, e-learning, all this cool stuff is great. We got regional strengths. Man, we can leverage it. We're small enough where we can be agile. We can learn from what other people are doing around the world to help make sure that what we deploy, we've got some case studies, we got some research done. Bridging the digital divide, and of course, sustainability. We've talked a lot about that. In conclusion, we've got to change. It's not an option. There's plenty of companies. I work also, by the way, I want to mention the Fiber Broadband Association in the US is having a 6,000 person conference in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. And you know who comes a lot? The electric utilities. They're building out their fiber networks. Now, I'm not sure regulatory people are going to let that happen anytime soon here, but there's just a lot of really cool cellular companies, cable companies, and the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, including in the United States, there's cooperatives, little small mom and pop companies. And they're going out of business because they don't want to change. They want to do it the way they've always done it. They have baby boomers at the helm, and all this change or this transformation really doesn't turn them on. No problem. They're just going out of business. So a call to action here. We can all work together, and I'm just so delighted. This has been my favorite CANTO, and I'm a regular, and I just think we had fabulous speakers, fabulous content, and together we can all move forward and create an environment to focus on our customers, CX, our employees, EX. We can't have happy external customers if we don't have happy internal customers, to innovate and grow and thrive in the future. So of course, with our courage, our foresight, and playing together, we can really, the rest of our time in this industry, really work together beautifully. So I think that's I have 2 minutes and 52 seconds left. I can't believe it. Any questions from the audience?
We have room for one question, yes. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Wait. Give me a moment here. You sure? No questions?
No, I'm just thanking you, but no, we have room for one question. Yeah, of course.
Do I need to beg? I mean, I will feel like a failure as a speaker if nobody has any questions. I will have the imposter syndrome where I won't go, I did a great job. I'll go, oh, it was horrible. Oh, thank you. We have a question. Let's give him a round of applause for helping me out.
Thanks, Melissa, and I'm not sure I deserve the applause because what I'm going to say is that I love your inspirational speech, and you must have been doing it for many, many years in this region. I've worked in this region for nearly 20 years now, and I've heard many of these messages many, many times before. Collaboration, courage, foresight, change. Not much has changed, to be honest. And you know, I love the region. I appreciate all the difficulties and challenges that this region has that are quite unique in the world. But I'm with you. I encourage people to solve these problems for themselves. I sometimes get the impression that everyone's waiting for people from outside to come and solve the problems. They're not going to get solved. It's up to you.
Without a doubt. So thank you very much. I will end on one last comment. I'll share one personal tidbit about me. I'm adopted, had the best parents in the world. But that's what I feel like CANTO has done. I've come up with ideas for over 20 years, and CANTO goes, try it, do it. And so when I come here, it's like going to a high school reunion. I mean, I just feel so connected, and I just want to say thank you, CANTO, and thank you for the region.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for those, actually a very powerful final presentation. And also, Julian, I could not have said it best. We once again really much appreciate the empowering words from our final speaker of this morning. And I would like to ask for please 3 minutes of your time. I know time is precious, but I ask 3 minutes to deliver a message on behalf of the CANTO group, CANTO organization, to all of us here today. As we bring CANTO Connect 2025 to a close, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for your active participation, insightful contributions, and unwavering commitment to advancing ICT industry. This event has been a true success because of you. Reflecting on the past 2 days, we have explored what it truly will take to achieve a unified and sustainable gigabit society here in the Caribbean. We've discussed the critical role of collaboration, innovation, and shared resources in bridging connectivity gaps and empowering our communities. The conversations highlighted the challenges of evolving digital demands, which push us to provide tailored, anywhere, anytime solutions, as well as the importance of scalable, future-proof infrastructure. Let me also extend our gratitude to our wonderful hosts here in Curaçao. The island has been incredibly warm and welcoming, providing not just a stunning setting, but also the perfect environment for meaningful dialogue and collaboration. You're welcome. Looking ahead, don't forget to save the date for our next flagship event, the CANTO 40th Anniversary Annual Conference and Trade Exhibition, which will take place from July 13th to the 16th, 2025, at the beautiful Grand Hyatt Baha Mar in the Bahamas. We look for, there you go. We look forward to another exceptional gathering of ICT and perhaps HR professionals and stakeholders. In the meantime, let's connect, follow CANTO on all our social media platforms, and stay updated with the latest news, insights, and opportunities to engage. To our members of the association, a quick reminder that our annual general meeting proceedings will resume promptly at 1 p.m. Please be on time as we continue the important work of shaping the future of this dynamic organization. As we wrap up today's agenda, we're delighted to also invite you to the Chairman's Cocktail, which will be held at 5 p.m. at the 5 o'clock bar. That is in the back of the Renaissance Resort. This is a wonderful opportunity to unwind, connect with colleagues, and reflect on the achievements of this conference in a more relaxed setting. As we heard our keynote speaker, we must ask ourselves, what's sticking you? It's a question with many layers, encouraging us to reflect on how we contribute to the greater good in this evolving digital landscape. Let's go far, unified as one Caribbean community, driving innovation and sustainability in the ICT and fintech sector. As we wrap up today's reflection, I leave you with the African proverb that embodies the spirit of this conference. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. It was a true honor to serve as your master of ceremony today, and I hope to see all of you again very much soon. So please, a round of applause for everyone that made this CANTO Connect possible. An applause for you as well. You may now please enjoy the lunch that we have provided, and I'll see the later team for the AGM starting at 1 p.m. Thank you so much.